Hello. In this short video, I aim to take you through just a paper one revision. We'll mostly discuss the tips as well as the structure of this paper, and all the best for those who are writing tomorrow. And these will be basically grade 12s who are actually writing their final paper tomorrow. This video can also be used by grade 10s as well as grade 11s. It is still useful as the structure of paper 1 English home language remains the same. So without wasting any time, let's dive into this short review. Now, first, it would be reasonable to actually look at the overview of this paper, which is paper 1. You will see that the aim of this paper or exam is to test your reading skills, comprehension skills, as well as language and editing skills. Also, you see that the paper is divided into 3 sections. The first section is usually the comprehension, where you will be given a passage and then questions will come from that passage. Also, you have section B there. Section B mainly deals with your summary skills or summarizing skills, where you're given a passage, a very short passage, and you're supposed to read through that passage, extract the main points, as well as produce your own version of the passage that you were reading, only focusing on the main points. I think most of you here usually do your summary in point form, but just know that you're supposed to do a paragraph format of this. And then also you'll have your section C there, which mainly focus on language and editing, and these basically the mark allocation. Section A is 30 marks, section B is 10 marks, as well as section C, which is 30 marks. Now the total will be 70 marks, and the paper is 2 hours. Yes. Okay. Now let's talk about the comprehension. Now, to do well in this section, first you'll have to read the question. You'll have to read the questions first. After reading through the questions, and then you go through the passage. This basically helps you to read now the comprehension with an aim, basically. And then also you need to underline keywords while you are reading there. Use your own words unless told to quote, especially when you answer those questions. And then explain tone and attitude, sarcastic, awful, critical. These are some of the examples of tone that you can talk about. And then some comprehension also give you part where you're supposed to, where they give you a picture or a very short cartoon, and then you're supposed to look into that as well. Now, how many times should you read the comprehension? Now, this is very important because you can't just read once and then you answer the questions. I usually suggest that my students read these parts 3 times because it is very important and it constitutes a lot of marks, most of your marks basically. So this is how you do it. You need to read for the first time. This is just to get familiar with the text. You read through the text the first time. The second time is when now you read for understanding. And then this is basically where you read with a purpose, where you read with an aim to basically understand. Obviously, you're going to be underlining some things that are important there. And then the third time is when you read to answer questions. So, like I said, first things first, go through all the questions and then attack the passage. You read through the passage. Obviously, when you read for the first time, some of, depending on what the passage is, most of those things won't be making any sense, basically. And then you read for the second time. This is when you read for understanding. So, you'll be looking at the question, looking at the questions and then reading again. And then third time is when now you read to answer the questions. You would see that most of your answers, all your answers basically are from there. What the examiner does is they take the passage, they read through the passage, and they go through each and every paragraphs, and then they ask themselves, okay, what question can I ask from this paragraph? And then they generate the question like that. So all you need to know is the answers are there. So basically, section A is where you read for understanding. Read for understanding. All those questions are constructed such that they check your level of understanding. Can you read for understanding? So basically, that's the aim for section A. So the aim here is, or the motivation that you should have, is the fact that all the answers are in the passage. I must read the passage such that I understand the passage so that I can respond to these questions. So that's basically what you need to know for section A. Now, section B is summary. Again, this is easy marks. Okay, the second section of this paper deals with summarizing. Basically, here you'll be given a very short passage that you need to read and then summarize. So summarizing is very easy. Here, you just look for the main points and then you rewrite those main points in your own words. So basically, this is how you will go about this. You will need to focus on the main ideas only, and then after looking into those ideas, now the second step is to try by all means to write those in your own words as far as possible. And then you also need to write in full sentences. Usually it's 70 to 90 words. That's basically what they will actually give you. Now, you need to make sure that you count your words when you are done, just to make sure that you are within the allowed limits or minimum, basically. Now, you need to stick to what is asked. I think what most of you would actually do here is you want to now generate your own passage. You know that you are not supposed to do that. And if you do that, you basically get 0 for a summary. Now, section B is a very easy section, because if you look at the steps that you need to follow, first you got this passage that you are given. You need to read through that passage, take a pencil, cancel out anything that is not important, and whatever you are left with there is basically your main points. And then you need to rewrite those main points in your own words, use synonyms and so on. Basically, that's how you go about the summary. Most of you fail to actually get these marks because it's either you copy word for word, or whatever points that you select are basically not main points. So it is also important that you read for understanding. You are able to get the gist of the matter that you are given. Yeah. Okay, now, and then there is section C. Section C needs your attention, and so as the rest of the sections. So, as you know, that question 3 would be advertisement, and then question 4 is basically cartoons. Now, I will spend some time looking into what you need to do. How should you basically approach the advertisement, because I've seen that you tend to struggle here getting that 10 out of 10, which is basically very easy. Visual literacy is about what is it that I see, or what can you see. Yeah, that's basically about that. Okay, so how does one understand advertisement? Again, I'm just going to quickly run through this, because again, this is a revision, of course. Okay, so this is one thing that you need to understand about advertisement, that there is always a target market. Basically, an advert has to be targeted to someone, And then you need to ask yourself, who is basically the advertisement meant for, and basically how do you know who is it aiming, who is it appealing to. You need to be specific. There is always, maybe not always, but there could be a question like that. And then you need to also determine the age, the gender of this target market, as well as ethnicity, personality, interest, as well as a lifestyle or slash income level, or as well as location. Now, that's basically the first thing that you need to deal with. Who is this advertisement targeted to? And then after that, you need to check the written copy. This is what you need to look for. This is basically the writing. Look at any writing on the advertisement. Remember, you need to read everything on that paper. Everything. You need to also be mindful of each and everything, because everything that's there in that advertisement is basically there for a reason. Now, also you need to check what sort of language is it using. You need to look for brand names, keywords, slogans, captions, as well as repetitions of product names. And then you need to also to look for use of personal pronouns like I and you. These are basically somehow persuasive because they include you as a reader, or as a person who's actually reading through the advertisement. Now, we know also that usually advertisements are catchy. This basically it makes it easy for us, or for the readers, or for those who encounter it, to be able to understand or remember it. And then also look for rhetorical questions. They are there in order to basically engage those who see the advertisement, and also to make them think. Now, how informative or persuasive is a text? That's another thing you need to consider. But for you to actually make understand this, or to be able to answer this question, you need to be able to engage with the text. Now, emotive words are words that appeals to emotions, and these they can actually influence decisions. For an example, do you know that you can die today? Get yourself a funeral cover. Already now you're thinking about death, and you are afraid, so you are more likely to actually act. That such language is somehow manipulative. Now, these they can give the reader an immediate emotional response. Think of like a car insurance, like a warranty. When somebody says, "Do you know that your car can break down at any time?" And then now they are trying to sell you something like car insurance or a warranty. Now, these are some of basically the situations of manipulative. Sometimes these words can be warm, gentle, fragrant, whisper, kiss. All these words, they actually make us think of something. They make us feel a certain way. So these are all the things that you need to look for in that advertisement, because the aim of the advertisement basically is to persuade. Now, they have certain connotations, like things that readers associate with these words basically are all favorable. Now, for an example, these are negative ones like old, stale, penniless, ache, cold, winter, stench. Now, these words all produce feelings that are distasteful and offensive, or basically ugly. Now, what are the key words you need to ask yourself? You need to look for that as you read or as you engage with the advertisement. What is the slogan? Look at the typography, look at the type size, look at the font, and everything, and know that each and everything is there for a reason and for a specific meaning. Consider also the punctuations like exclamation marks, question marks, or ellipses. Now, these are all the things. Now, you would see also that there's basically a relationship between cartoons and advertisement, because it's all about visuals, images, being able to interpret this. Okay. Now, the third step now, first, you were able to ask yourself, what is the target market for this advertisement, or who is the target market for this advertisement? And then the next step, which was step number 2, you considered the words or the written copy. You read through everything that was there. Now, the third step is to consider the visual text or images. Now, you will look at the layout, which basically consists of the sizes, the placement, the white space or the background, where is the emphasis at. Now, also, you consider the graphics. These are pictures. What is happening in the illustration? How does the slogan affect the message? And also the brand or the product being sold. Is there a picture of the product for sale? How important is it to the advert as a whole? These are all the things that you consider. Okay, maybe before I go or to time management, which is basically the last thing here I want to cover, I'm just gonna switch here and cover the cartoons as well, because this is question 3 and question 4. Okay, now how do you deal with the cartoon? Cartoon also is about what you see, right? What you see. Also, you need to read, you need to look at the pictures, you need to look at the punctuations. Okay, for an example.
Patrick, I think we should keep our voices down.
Okay, what did I just do?
Patrick, I think we should keep our voices down. We might start an avalanche.
What?
I said, I think we should keep our voices down in case of avalanches.
What should we keep?
Okay, that's basically an example here of a cartoon. If I were to ask you, how is this character feeling? Okay, you would say maybe, is he sad? If you say the character is sad, you need to actually give a reason as to why he's sad. Obviously, you focus on the facial expression, yeah? And you need to make also a close reference to the cartoon. You can't just say this character is sad and then and not give a reason, or maybe say something that's basically different. Okay.
Morons.
Voices! Well,
Okay, sorry.
Patrick!
Okay, if you had to comment on the body language, what would you say? Again, what do you see? That's basically what visual literacy is about in cartoons. Okay, let me see if I can continue. Okay, now basically a cartoon is a humorous drawn picture. Are they always light-hearted? This is some of the question I can ask you. And this is just an example of what a cartoon looks like. Obviously, there's this is a comic strip example with frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, and you see they present different scenes basically, and that's what you'll be looking at here. You see, these are characters, and then there's words here and speech bubbles and things like that. Okay, so now what is it that you should focus on when you deal with a cartoon? You look at the actions, the characters, the language that is being used there, the setting, look for symbols as well, or stereotypes, the humor. There's always a question like that. Basically, towards the end, is usually the last question, as well as the facial expressions, the body language, the speech bubbles, thoughts bubbles, movement, lines, onomatopoeia. These basically are all the jargon that is used when dealing with cartoons. Now let's talk about actions. What is happening in the cartoon? You should be able to identify that. How is the cartoon portrayed? So obviously, yeah, you'll be focusing on the characters and the lines and exactly what they are doing. And then to get a full picture as well, you're gonna have to look at the words as well, read the text. Okay. Now, the second aspect here, which is not necessarily the second aspect, it's linked with actions, because if you talk about the actions, you need to also, you are dealing with characters there, because it is characters who are actually performing an action. Now, what emotions are communicated through facial expressions? That's a question you need to ask yourself. What actions and emotions are communicated through body language? As well as what does the body language suggest about the relationships between the characters. So as you analyze the frames, these are all the questions that you ask yourself, and that's basically how you are able to make meaning of the cartoon as a whole, and that's basically how you'll be able to respond to the questions. Now, obviously, you looked at the actions and you were able to link the actions with characters. Now, for you to understand what is actually happening, you can't only focus on the actions. Now, you have to look at now the text. What is it that they are saying, the language being used there? What words have been used? How has punctuation been used to suggest emotions? For an example, if you see an exclamation mark, it could be excitement, it could be a shock, and so on. So, punctuation is used to create meaning. You are not allowed to go in there. That's basically a command. You are not allowed to go in there. Oh, it could be a command or it could be a statement. You are not allowed to go in there. That's basically there's an exclamation mark there. That's putting emphasis or shouting, and then also you see it just shows you how punctuations create meaning. For example, there was exclamation mark there, which was shouting. Now there is a question mark, which is basically inquiring. Now, and then you have verbal clues. These are some part of drawing may be used to help the reader to establish what the cartoon is basically about. And then now, you need to also consider the setting. Where and when is the cartoon set? What is the particular social context of the cartoon? For example, if you look at this picture here, you see this is basically these are two different settings, and you'll have to look at the characters, the background, and everything to actually determine the characters. And then we have some sort of stereotypes or symbols. Has the cartoonist made use of stereotypes? You need to ask yourself. These could be overgeneralized belief about particular category of people. For example, a statement could be said, all teenagers are rebels. That's basically an example of a stereotype. Has the cartoonist used any symbols to represent something else? Okay, and then you have humor. How humor is basically created is humor is usually created in these cartoons. These are type of humor to look for. There could be irony when one thing is said but something else is meant. A child runs away from someone throwing water balloon at him and falls into the pool. So that's basically an irony there. That this person was actually running away from something small like a balloon. Now they fall into a pool. Or that could be a satire, which uses humor to make a serious point, involve using wit, irony, or sarcasm to highlight human voices or follies. And then you have pun, which is a joke, exploiting the difference, possible meaning of a word, or the fact that there are words which sound alike but have different meaning. And then you have stereotypes, which is an exaggerated preconceived generalization about their typical attitude, could be dress or whatever. Okay. Now, these are some of the things. Sometimes a question will direct you For an example, if the question is about emotions, you're going to have to look at facial expressions, the body language, and so on, and all those things. Okay. Now, when it comes to body language, now you see you've got facial expressions here. This is basically not the same as body language. So if the question says by, maybe with close reference to the body language, now that means you need to look at the body, not the face. That's just below the face. Okay. So raise eyebrows, these are some of the examples. It could show shock or enthusiasm or interest, or you could have furrowed eyebrows, which is skepticism or concentration or focus. These are all the example. A smile is basically showing joy that somebody is happy. Now you can't say he's happy because of the facial expression. You need to give basically specific details. Okay. And then you have body language, which point out the obvious, no matter how clear the expression may seem. Example of body language and what may be indicated, these are some of the examples. So here you've got an outstretched arm, as you see here, which could be an exaggeration or emphasis. Slumped posture, it shows that somebody is bored or uninterested. And then you have head buried hands, overwhelmed or frustrated, and then head placed on one hand, usually paired with an eye roll, annoyance or impatience. These are all the examples that you need to look for. And then we have a case of speech bubbles, thought bubbles, speech bubble, thought bubbles, bubbles with spoken words when asked refer to diction, text language, or words in the cartoon. This is where basically to look. Okay, now I'm just gonna quickly skip this. Okay, lastly will be your question 5, which is about language and editing. Basically, this is where you need to be able to identify the spelling error. You need to know basically basic things like your concord error, what else? Punctuation, direct and indirect speech, and so on, in parts of speech. So this is basically also the easiest part, but it's one of the things that people usually struggle about. So you really need to actually go through, make sure that you understand these questions there. Okay. Now let's look into time management. But this is what I would suggest. You don't have to actually spend. It's just a suggestion. Maybe for comprehension, because it requires reading. There we said you can read. You have to read at least 3 times. First time just to get familiar with the text. Second time you read for meaning and understanding. And the third time is when you read the question and you also refer back to the text. So here maybe we can spend like an hour doing this, or maybe under an hour, but you need to spend reasonable time. Summary, you can spend 20 minutes or something less, as well as here you can spend your 40 minutes. So basically the paper is 2 hours, and this is how you can spend your time. Obviously you can't spend an hour and a half on comprehension. Chances are you are not going to be able to finish that paper. So I really hope that tomorrow it will go well. All the best, and good luck. Also, wait, you need to save time for checking. So you must have like 10 minutes just for checking and making sure that everything is in order. So if you think this video was helpful, please like, subscribe, and